Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our next episode of Pro Musicis Family of Artists. I am so delighted to welcome Mariko Anraku, the 1993 Pro Musicis International Award winner in harp. She has gone on to be a soloist all over the world, has gone to Juilliard, the Curtis Institute of Music, and also has the coveted position of being the principal harpist of the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, one of the great orchestras of the world. Welcome, Mariko. Thank you so much for being a part of our series, Pro Musicis Family of Artists.
Thank you so much. I mean, Pro Musici is such a beautiful family of artists.
Could you tell us, to get things started, a little bit about your background? Were you born in Japan and then came to America, and exactly who you studied with, and how you got to the point of auditioning for Pro Musicis and how you found out about it?
Well, yes, I was born in Japan. When I was 9 years old, my father's job transferred our family to Vancouver, Canada, actually. Mm-hmm. And so we spent a few years there. And then my father was transferred to Toronto, Canada. So we moved there and spent a few years there. And that's where I met my life mentors, both my piano teacher and my harp teacher. So James and Agneson for piano and Judy Lohman for harp. And sure. They're, of course, still very much a part of my life. And I owe so much to them. I mean, so many people I'm grateful for, but they were my foundations. Of course, my parents. My father.
How old were you when you started the harp?
I think I had just turned 9 or just before 9, and my aunt is a harpist, and that's how I started playing the harp.
I see.
I had grown up. My grandmother. She started me on the piano when I was 3. My mom was having my brother, and so I stayed with my grandmother, and that's when she started introducing me to the piano. And my aunt left one harp at my grandmother's house, so whenever I would go over, of course, the harp would be there. And so it was, harp was always in my life. And when my body grew a little bigger, so when I was a little older, they started me on the harp, but then our family moved to Canada. So I met really great teachers in Vancouver as well. So then after Toronto, my father was actually transferred to Los Angeles.
Okay.
At that time, Judy Lohman, my teacher in Toronto, suggested that I stay on in Toronto with her family and continue studying with her. So when I was in high school, I lived with Judy's family and was, part of her family. But then when my father got transferred back to Japan from LA, then I went back to Japan with them. So my last year of high school, I spent in Tokyo at the American School in Japan. But I kept going back and forth between Toronto and Japan and continuing my studies with Judy. After a few years at the Sophia University in Tokyo, where I was studying a little bit of Oriental art history and still continuing, studies with Judy in Toronto whenever I could, I decided that I wanted to apply for the Juilliard School. Unfortunately, I was accepted, and then I moved to Juilliard, where I studied with Nancy Allen.
Mm-hmm. Who is also was she a Pro Musicis winner, Nancy Allen?
Yes, she is. And so at one point she told me about Pro Musici and said, why don't you try? So I did. So and then my world opened up to all of this.
Right. And so before we move on, you won the competition. What is some of your favorite literature to play? What do you love the most in the harp literature or in the orchestral literature? What are some of the things you really look forward to playing?
Well, that's such a hard question to answer. And I mean, I'm not sure about you, but for me, all different types of music are just a joy to play. So I've been with the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra since 1995, and often people ask me, "What's your favorite opera to play?" And they're just all amazing. So it's hard to choose. The harp repertoire compared to, say, the piano repertoire
Is
is
not as large. No.
not as large, but we also play transcriptions and like
Do you like
Scarlatti
play?
or
Yeah, I was
Bach.
going to say, do you like playing Scarlatti and Bach on the harp? Is that satisfying for you?
Yes, it's very satisfying. I don't know how keyboard players feel about us playing, but
Oh, I
yeah,
love it.
yes, definitely. And I feel so fortunate to be able to play solo, but also chamber and
Yeah,
orchestral
all
and
worlds.
operatic repertoire. I mean, especially for the harp, we can experience so much more by being an orchestral musician and opera. There's so many, well, harp solos, but also the
Yes.
harp plays such an important part.
And Pro Music is so lucky to have an artist like yourself, a harpist in our family. It's indeed very special. I mean, for instance, the Jerusalem Post. I'm going to make a quote: "A manifestation of grace and elegance." The New York Times has hailed you as a masterful artist of intelligence and wit. I mean, you can't get any better than that. It's just fabulous. We've talked a lot about Father Merlet in this series because he's really was the core, along with John Haig, of this beautiful organization. Could you talk a little bit about your relationship with Father Merlet and what he meant to you?
Wow. That's a huge, huge question. I feel so fortunate that I was
Hmm.
able to spend so much time with him because he spent quite a bit of time in New York, and
Hmm.
I used to visit, well, both John and Father Merlet on this West 79th Street office. Every time I'm in that area, I think of him and I still feel him. I also, he came to a lot of the concerts that I played in Paris too, and New York, LA. But also, I visited him once at the chateau. Remember the
Oh
chateau that?
yes, yes.
Yeah,
So
and
for our listeners, let me just back up a second. There was a patron of Pro Musicis who lived in France who donated a chateau to Father Merlet. I believe he met that patron like on a cruise or something like that. And wherever Father Merlet went, he like attracted people, and he would get them interested in the mission, and he'd bring them on board to Pro Musicis. And he got this person to donate this chateau where they presented concerts, and it was the French offices of Pro Musicis at the time. Go ahead.
right. Yeah, so I remember visiting him there as well. And we had a lovely, quiet, beautiful afternoon. I still remember it was a beautiful sunny day, and we took a walk through the grounds. And well, I have tears coming almost thinking
Oh,
about that. Um, yeah, he was such a gentle and very
gentle.
grounded, gentle yet very grounded and very, very motivated in a beautiful, sincere way to help us and to help the community and the world through the sharing of music. He understood the power of music and the artists, and it helps both the artists and the community at large. And he was an organist himself, as you know, and the Pro Musici artists know. Um, and I remember him sitting at the organ that he had at West 79th Street apartment office too. And yeah, I mean, I don't know, how do you explain him, describe him
Well,
in words? He was
he had a
great.
joie de vivre. He had a joie de vivre, and this joy of life and music, and as you say, at this very deep religious level. And what was so wonderful is that in the mission, and we always talk about this. We'll talk about this next. Is not only, as I always say, his vision was to present his winners in major concert halls, but he also wanted us to be in places where music would not be often heard, places where music was just very, very special when it came in. and he called these community service concerts that now have morphed into the Father Merlet Award that become one-year projects. The scope a lot bigger now since he's passed on. But in our day, when we were the winners, we did these community service concerts in conjunction with the major concert that we'd give in the city that we were performing in. So could you tell us some special memories you had of some of Father Merlet's community service concerts that you did?
Sure, they're all special. And like you said, we had the opportunity to go to at least 2 venues in each city that we were presented, and amazing concert halls as well. The one that pops up into my mind first always is one is the LA Women's Prison. I forget the name of it.
In Los Angeles. Is this when you played at the LA? You played at the LA County Museum of Art at the Bing Auditorium.
Yes. And one of the community service concerts that I got to do was at a women's prison, and Father Merlet came with me. And I still can picture him sitting at the back of the room behind the lady inmates. So I played in sort of like gymnasium space, and I'd never been inside of a prison. So of course I was a little bit scared, going in through all these locked fences and doors. And anyway, once I started playing, the room just became so quiet and so warm. And after the performance, we had a Q&A, and the ladies, the girls, talked to me and started asking me lots of questions. And one of them, shouted out, "Oh, will you come and play at my wedding when I get out of here?" And, it was just so nice, because not only did they really seem to appreciate the music, and they listened, and they said they were so touched, and they, thanked me. But we're all human beings, right? We're all the same. And just because they're in prison, like, I just felt no walls between us. And I felt like through the music, we became very close, like buddies. And I mean, how do you ever have an experience like that?
I had this very similar experiences, and I think if we talk to all our artists, they probably feel the same way, which makes us such a special family of artists. And we have this one thing in common, and that is Father Merlet and his vision of a pro musicus artist, and what it represents and what we represent, being pro musicus artists. Don't you agree?
Yeah, exactly. And he fostered it so naturally through us.
Yes.
And we just did it, right? And it was the most rewarding and for me, the most touching experiences of playing music have been these community service concerts. And can I share another one with you?
Please.
So when Pro Musicis sent me to Paris.
No, you played at the Opera Comique. Yeah.
So beautiful, grand, amazing historical concert hall, right? And Father Merlet was there. I'm so lucky he was
went to a lot of your concerts, yes.
We were together at so many places. In Paris, one of the places that we went to was Center for Handicapped Individuals. And I played, I think it was like a chapel setting, and there were kids. I don't remember if it was just for kids or, and of course there were adults. But anyway, after I played, they all came up to me and we started talking. But one girl I remember specifically, she was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And she said to me that, she thanked me and she said, "Thank you so much for your beautiful music. May I give you a gift back? Because it was just so beautiful." And she started to sing a song for me. And that was just the most touching experience. And
how much more could you how much more can you ask for? I mean, that is, it's like these are the rewards that we get as artists, is by giving and then getting back this wonderful energy, and touching lives, and then the people that we come in contact with touch our lives, and it's just a beautiful
Yeah,
synergy. It's a beautiful synergy that's created.
yeah, exactly. It's the give and take and the flow of life just right there
Yes,
manifesting.
yes.
And same in Rome, we went, it was a suburb or like a little bit in the hills
Hmm.
outside of Rome. And I went and played for a place where there were blind people.
Hmm.
And they came up to me after and they wanted to touch my hands to feel, what's playing the strings. And they were
Wow.
also just such a warm, wonderful bunch of people. And then in New York City, I've gone to do a lot of community service concerts in New York City because I live here.
Hmm.
But one of the first ones I did was at the Phoenix House. It's a
Hmm.
drug rehab place. And of course, I was a little bit scared at first because I walked into a room with many big guys and
Hmm.
rough. And but again, once I started talking and playing, they were just like normal guys, and they asked the most simple, great questions, and we conversed. And I was amazed that they actually enjoyed harp music. I was so happy that I could, connect and communicate with them that way. And just the conversations
Beautiful.
after the performances are just so simple and normal and heartwarming in the most simplest way. And yeah, so I'm forever grateful to Father Murlay because
Absolutely.
he let us know really the power of music through these experiences and
And
music.
he really helped grow us as artists and people. He gave so much. We're such a special person. We're so lucky that he touched our lives.
Yes, definitely.
So now that you're in the Metropolitan Orchestra and you've been in for many years as a principal harpist, and as I had mentioned, it's one of the great orchestras of the world, not just for opera orchestra, but just orchestra. Can you give us some of your reflections on this year and the pandemic and what it's done to music and where you think music is going to go? And just talk about some of your own personal experiences and emotions about what we're going through and how hopeful you are or not hopeful you are to talk about the arts and them coming back, and just give us an idea of your world and your life.
Okay, well, I think the pandemic has affected all of us globally. And again, so in a way, the world is one because of it.
Hmm.
So I like to think of everything very positively. And for me, I've been able to see all the silver linings through the pandemic. Of course, when it first started to happen, it was stressful. And actually, us at the Metropolitan Opera, we the house shut down. I forget the exact date, mid-March sometime, and then as of April 1st, 2020, we've been furloughed without pay. So that was shocking to us at first, but I think that we're so lucky to have music because it's something that never leaves us, and I think the world has also realized the importance of music. I don't mean just the musicians, but
Right.
everybody in the world appreciates music and live music so much. I talk to so many of my non-musician friends and they
Hmm.
miss live music so much. And us at the Metropolitan Opera, early on, like last spring, we played outside. We played just outside of Lincoln Center and, as ensembles or smaller ensembles. And that was a gift to us, but also to those who walked by, I think. And, I know some people also played in Central Park, in the park, and whatever that we could do, whenever there have been opportunities, we played outside. And of course, in the
It all
winter, it got
it makes us almost wish in a way that Father Murlay was still alive so we could hear his wisdom about how
yeah,
to take on this year and hear his grace and his prayer and his knowledge and insight, because
yeah,
everybody has their own story through this
yeah.
year, and it's wonderful that you are such an optimistic we need people like you. We need people like you who are going to bring the music back, who believe that the arts are still alive and will be alive and vibrant. And because we do need them, we do need. I mean, the arts, as Father Merlet passionately believed, they really define civilization, and they glorify the voice of God. This is what Father Merlet believed, and
That's right.
and I think
Right.
it's
And that's
very
why,
important to hear that.
yeah, and no matter where you are in the world or what type of music you listen to or you enjoy, like whatever your life circumstances are, music is a part of every person, right? And
Indeed, and we must never
and
lose.
so
We must never lose sight of that. And speaking of not losing sight, of course, you are a great artist and one of the foremost harpists in the world. But I want to ask you, as I ask all Pro Musicis artists, can you cite a performance that you always go to, that you listen to, that you're inspired by, that you could share with us from another artist that we could watch? And could you introduce something like that for us?
sure. I mean, there are several different pieces that I love, but one would be Rachmaninoff playing his own concerto, whether it's the number one, or oh no, number two or number three. Um, I also love Morgan by Strauss.
Boy, that was incredible. Now, amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, the next question I'm going to ask you is, can you share with us a live performance that you did that you think really represents yourself at your best, that we would love to see you in action? So can you pick one of your many performances that we could watch?
Sure. So I would love to share a performance of the Debussy dances, sacred and profane, but I think we'll just have time to hear the first dance, the sacred, the sacré.
And can you talk a little bit about it and your experience in learning it? Tell us a little bit about it, just briefly.
Yeah, it's one of our standard repertoire for the harp that we all learn and that we all perform. And it can be done with, string quartet and bass, which in this performance, that's the form that we did it in. It's also done with orchestra, beautiful wash of color, and just gorgeous Debussy's work. And for the harp, we really, really treasure this piece. One of the most treasured pieces, because we don't have that many works by great composers. And you'll hear his beautiful colors and harmonies, and it's just a gorgeous work. So I hope you enjoy it.
That's great. So yeah, let's move to that. I can't wait to watch it. And here it is. Well, that was really beautiful. My goodness. And the combination of your artistry and the brilliance of Debussy and your beautiful sound and tone on the harp. And speaking of your beautiful sound and your touch on the harp, can you tell us who was one of you talked about your teachers in the beginning, but is there one major influence that you had in your development, one person, one harpist that you really, really look up to who helped shape who you are?
Well, I have to say, I have three people who really, really influenced me. So may I talk about all three a little bit?
Please do.
So first is my aunt who started me on the harp.
And that was in Japan.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's four because it's without my grandmother, I would not have started music. And she's still alive. Actually, she's 103.
Nice. Oh yeah, my goodness.
And she's in Japan. She's at a nursing home, and she still plays. She still accompanies the.
Oh, it's beautiful! What a beautiful thing.
They have a choir at the nursing home, and so she sight reads for them. She's 103.
That is just so wonderful.
Yeah. So you asked for one, but I'm sorry, I have to stretch it out to four because without her, I wouldn't be sitting with you talking.
Gotcha.
So yeah, thank God for my grandmother. She instilled the love of music for all our family members. And then, of course, my aunt, who started me on the harp, and she's also still performing, and she's going to be, I think, 80 this June. She's still teaching a lot and performing a lot and still learning so much new music, even though, she's so full of life. So thanks to her too. And then, of course, Judy Lohman, who I met in Toronto, and she really set a big foundation for me. My grandmother and my aunt, yes, of course, they were the first foundations. But Judy really instilled everything into me. She's an amazing individual, as a harpist and teacher, as a friend, mother. I know her as everything: sister, daughter, mother, wife. She's just an amazing individual. So, of course, musically, she gave so much to me, and I wouldn't be who I am without her. But also as a human being, wow, I really, really admire and respect her, and thank God I have such a great, role model.
Nice.
And then the fourth is Nancy Allen, who's also a Pro Musicis artist, and she's also an amazing individual. And I learned so much from and through her too, and even now too. Of course, we're in touch, time to time, quite often. And I'm just so inspired by her all the time. Just her vigorous and amazing outlook, for the harp and harp repertoire and harp community, but also just a very an inspirational individual. And so all these four women, actually, very amazing, inspiring, strong women.
Their voices are with you wherever you go.
Definitely. And then, everyone I meet and spend time with touches me. And of course, Father Merlet, without his presence.
And don't you feel like when you're performing that it's all of these voices that have touched your life in such a wonderful way that are with you on the stage, that give you the confidence and the energy and the inspiration and the courage to go out on the stage to be who you are. Don't you think that's part of it?
Yeah, sure. Of course, I'm not aware of it when I'm on stage, but when, talking to you like this.
But just thinking about it, they're with you.
I feel like such a lucky person. Just very grateful for all these
nice, beautiful,
inspiring people in my world.
Now I have to ask you one other question. This is kind of out of left field, a little bit silly, but what the heck. Was Harpo Marx a decent harpist?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
I had to ask. I'm
So,
sorry.
yeah, he brought so much life to the instrument, and
Okay.
most people in the world only know the harp because of Harpo Marx, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
Next.
listen, I just want to say thank you for being a part of this series of the Family of Artists. And for me as the host, it's such a joy to get to know a lot of the other artists that I haven't met. But one thing's for sure, we all have something so much in common, and that is that bond of this Pro Musicis International Award and the bond of Father Merlet and John Haig. And that's something that is unbreakable, that will bond us no matter how close we are. It molds an attitude in us as Pro Musicis artists, and how lucky we are and what music is all about. And you represent that so beautifully. And thank you so much for your words and your performances and your successes that are so well deserved. And here's to music coming back. And as I say to all the artists, I think Father Merlet is looking down on you and smiling with great love. And I sincerely mean that. I say that to almost every single artist, all the artists that I've interviewed, because they've all been just wonderful like yourself. So thank you very much.